I have no questions. Members, we're going to move on to the next bill on the agenda, House Bill 781. I've got human rights for kids on Zoom. It's Emily.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to address the committee today. And just a quick thank you for your leadership in supporting legislation that protects the rights of children in Hawaii. As you recognize, my name is Emily Virgin, and I serve as the Director of Advocacy and Government Relations at Human Rights for Kids. We're a nonprofit dedicated to the promotion and protection of human rights for children. And I'm here to support today House Bill 781, which will ensure that children consult with legal counsel before they're able to waive their Miranda rights or are interrogated by law enforcement. Protecting these rights will reduce incidents of false confessions by children and will also better align Hawaii's policies with international human rights standards and juvenile brain science. This committee knows that the science tells us that kids are different. Their brains aren't fully developed, especially the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making. You recognize this all the time in statute, that they have a diminished capacity for decision making. We don't allow kids to drink alcohol, vote, get married, join the military. The list goes on. And we should apply this recognition to children in the criminal justice system. This recognition is crucial when we consider a child's entrance into the justice system. As I said, they're particularly susceptible to giving false confessions because children are not as sophisticated as adults when interacting with the system and being interrogated. They rarely have an understanding of the consequences and implications of those interrogations on their due process rights and what impact their statements may have during a trial. Among people who were accused of crimes as children and were later exonerated, 18% of them falsely confessed. And when the accused child is under 14, that rate of false confessions increases to 86%. By providing children with access to an attorney, we can help them understand the gravity of the situation and prevent false confessions. As a national organization, we track legislation on juvenile justice issues in all 50 states, and protecting the due process rights of children is perhaps the most common issue introduced in states across the country this year and last year that we've tracked, meaning that Hawaii would not be alone in adopting this policy. In just the last few years, Maryland, Utah, and Washington State have passed legislation similar to what you're considering today. And Virginia, California, and North Dakota have had similar policies in place for several years. Legislation similar to this was also introduced at the federal level during the last Congress, and we expect that the same legislation will be introduced again this Congress. We also submit for the official record the following recommendations for amendments to the bill to bring the legislation in closer alignment with human rights standards and new laws in Maryland and California that incorporate best practices. Number one would be to raise the age for the protections in the legislation to include every child under 18. Number two would be to require that the consultation of the child be with legal counsel instead of legal counsel or their parent guardian, and to require that a law enforcement officer who has arrested a child must notify the child's parent, guardian, or legal custodian that the child has been arrested and that they have to provide the location where the minor is being detained. In conclusion, this bill is a common sense, reasonable proposal to protect the rights of our most vulnerable citizens, our children. We strongly urge you to adopt the amendments and vote favorably upon this bill to ensure that we do everything we can to protect the constitutional and human rights of Hawaii's children. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee, for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, next up, we've got James Dode, Human Rights for Kids.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to keep my remarks very brief. Emily did a great job of really articulating our position on this legislation. Just want to thank you again for your leadership in introducing House Bill 781. You and I have worked together for more than a decade now on protecting the human rights of children in Hawaii, working together to pass some of the first anti-trafficking laws to make sure that the most vulnerable children in Hawaii were not subject to exploitation and abuse, and then moving from that issue to ending life without parole sentences for children in 2014 with former Representative Karen Owana, which was another huge step for the human rights protections of children in the justice system. And then again, introducing this package of bills in 2019, which includes the very legislation that the committee is considering today, which made significant progress back then, and we're really hoping can make its way through the legislature this year, because these issues really are, as Emily noted, are fundamentally rooted in international human rights law. Back in 2007, the Hawaii legislature passed HCR 69, which was a joint resolution urging the United States Senate to ratify the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And this provision from House Bill 781, it's actually from Articles 37 and 40 of that treaty. And so the Hawaii legislature has, as a matter of policy, already stated that the U.S. should be in compliance with these basic human rights protections for children. And this policy is really just to help, bring Hawaii more in line with that. It's something that Republicans and Democrats across the United States have adopted, as Emily mentioned. And so we really just urge the committee's favorable report. And again, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your leadership on this issue. We look forward to working with you to see this bill finally become law.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much. Next up, Michael Mendoza, Anti-Recidivism Coalition.
Mahalo, dear Chairman and the honorable members of the committee. Thank you so much for this opportunity to provide testimony in support of HB 781. I'm in strong support of this bill and also in a strong agreement with my colleagues, James and Emily, in terms of the proposed amendments as well. The Anti-Recidivism Coalition, we're an organization that helps currently and formerly incarcerated people to thrive by providing a supportive network, comprehensive reentry services, and opportunities to advocate for policy change. And like HRFK, our national advocacy efforts work towards providing best practices we have learned on the state level towards setting new national standards founded on hope, healing, and care. In California, where we're based, in 2020, we passed a law requiring youth under 18 to consult with an attorney before waiving their Miranda rights. The legislation was passed with bipartisan support while recognizing that these protections make our community safer. Both Democrats and Republicans in the California legislature took into consideration testimony from San Francisco District Attorney Chesa Boldin, who testified in support, stating that these protections have not diminished his office's ability to prosecute serious and violent crimes. This bill is about allowing our youth to understand their constitutional rights so we can ensure outcome of interrogations not only just and lawful, but from personal experience of being 15, arrested and interrogated, I fully believe these provisions would also create greater trust, accountability, and due process for all. Again, we are in agreement with the proposed amendments by HRFK, which I'll not mention for sake of time. But in terms of the parents, while we believe the presence of a parent or other adult who is close to the youth can be important to provide comfort and support, they're typically not well equipped to assist in the decision about whether to waive rights. And finally, we're equally excited about the national movement and all the great states that Emily had mentioned in terms of passing similar laws. And we're hopeful that these amendments would align the great state of Hawaii in the right direction towards setting the appropriate standards for the rest of the country to follow. And for these reasons, we at ARC support HB 781 and respectfully urge this committee to issue a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have any other testifiers on House Bill 781? House Bill 781. Okay, members, questions? Yes, Representative Kobayashi.
Emily, I'm looking at your amendments. Amendment number 2, page 3, line 5. You're saying strike the words "or a parent, legal guardian in person." I think this is an error, because if we include your amendment, legal counsel cannot see the non-adult in person.
Yeah, Emily, are you available on Zoom?
Yes, I was just making sure that I saw where you were referring, Representative. And I think I understand what you're saying. And James drafted that amendment. So we would want that the attorney have contact with the child. The reason we strike out parent or legal guardian or parent or legal guardian is so that, as Michael said, a parent or legal guardian would be notified under the language that we submitted, but that they must consult with legal counsel. So I know that totally that doesn't.
No, but
yeah, go ahead.
Legal counsel would not be able to meet with the client in person, given your amendment.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I can jump in. That's a great point, Representative, and that is actually an error on our part. And I apologize. We were drafting this yesterday, and so I totally missed that. It should be the language should end after guardian.
Right.
So it should be strike or a parent or legal guardian, and then that's the language that should be eliminated. And that so it reads after legal counsel in person, by in person, by telephone, or by video conference is how it should read it. So thank you so much for catching that error.
Okay. The other question that I have is why not allow both legal counsel and or parent, to the extent possible, to meet with client?
Well, thank you for that question, Representative. And I think, in the amendment language that we submitted, the parent would still have to be notified and provided the location of where they're detained. If you wanted to move forward with the bill that requires them to have contact and consultation with legal counsel and their parent or legal guardian, we would certainly support that. But the consultation with legal counsel is really going to be able to help them grasp the gravity of the situation and talk about the waiving of the right.
Of course, we understand that. I mean, many parents would not understand the legal situation regarding their child. So meeting with legal counsel might be much more helpful than meeting with a parent who has no legal background or knowledge whatsoever. But is there language that would allow both legal counsel and parent to meet with the client?
Yes, you could amend the bill and just replace that or with an and that would make sure that they have contact with both.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Emily, I have a question. Emily or James, I think instead of putting "and," it might be difficult. Is the word "or" better to be used? Because I understand what Representative Kobayashi is saying, and this is many it will be parental rights, legal guardian rights. If we could, I'm going to ask you, if we could take out the strike through, at least at this point, shall have contact with legal counsel, or I'm afraid to put "and" because if both aren't there, then we're not going to get them. So, or a parent or legal guardian in person. If we could get rid of the strike through, are you guys okay with that?
The best practice would be to ensure that the legal counsel is required. That they would have to consult with legal counsel, and that the parent or guardian would be optional, but that they would be notified of the child's detention and interrogation. So, obviously, Mr. Chair, we're happy to support however you would like to proceed, and I understand the difficulties of getting legal counsel and a parent or legal guardian, and so. What we would say is that just best practice is making sure that the legal counsel is consulted. That's what various states have done, Maryland being the most recent to require that legal counsel consultation. But we certainly understand, Mr. Chair, however you'd like to proceed.
Yes, I understand this bill. If it moves out of our committee, will go to the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee. I think you feel a lot more at ease if we can let them take that up, and if we can put in the committee report best practices indicate that legal counsel should be present for these minors. But I would like to, if you don't mind, take out the strike through of or a parent or legal guardian in person. If I can take the strike through out on your requested amendment.
Yeah, that is perfectly fine with us, Mr. Chair, and other states have similar language as well.
Awesome, and I'll make sure the committee report has best practices. Legal counsel will be present with those minors. Members, any other questions? James, are you there?
I'm here, Mr. Chairman.
James, yeah, I'm just haven't seen you a few years since COVID, but I wanted to thank you. Members, this is a great opportunity. James Dode is probably the foremost authority on domestic violence as well as human trafficking and sex trafficking. He ran the Office on Domestic Violence in Washington, D.C. I got to visit it 10 years ago. He has at that office the 24/7 hotline for anyone that's being in a domestic violence situation. They could call. You could be in New Jersey, you could be in Hawaii, you can be, I believe the line was almost worldwide. And so you are an authority, and wanted to thank you on helping Hawaii pass its first sex trafficking and labor trafficking laws, as well as a number of other big bills on domestic violence. So great to see you again, James, though it's been a while, but great to see you. Thank you for all your help, and definitely if we need your expertise in those other areas I mentioned, I know who to call on or email. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, James. Thank you. Members, if there's no further questions, yes, Representative Kobayashi.
Emily or James, what do you think of this language? I'm again on page 3, line 4, beginning line 4. The child shall have contact with legal counsel in person, comma, by telephone, comma, or by video conference, comma, and also to the extent possible and with consent of the child shall have contact with parent or legal guardian, period.
That would be great. Yes, thank you, Representative.
Representative, you got that language down? Because should we pass this bill, I'm going to turn to you for the amendment.
Yeah, okay.
The Kobayashi amendment. Okay. Yeah, feel free to write it down. Okay, any other questions? Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your testimony and working with our committee members on reasonable amendments. Okay, we're going to move to the last